some of my family couldn't.
Okay, so we're doing a series called Be the Hero of Your Own Story. I think it's helpful every now and again to think of your own life as though it were a story. That way you can give yourself a mental check, a mental note that your life is meant to have chapters. And the chapters often are slightly different. Your life is meant to have challenges. It's meant to have a beginning and a middle and an end. That stuff is just good to remember every now and again. Now, the basic structure of a story is a hero who wants something and who overcomes conflict to get it. All stories, in all cultures, in all periods of history, have that basic structure. And if you don't have that structure, you don't have a story. Every movie you've ever seen, every book you've ever read, that was the structure. That is the monomyth. So take Jaws, for example. The main hero in that story is the sheriff. And the hero wants something. What does he want? He wants to kill the shark. And the hero has to overcome a conflict in order to kill the shark. What's the conflict he has to overcome? Fear, selfish people in the Chamber of Commerce, the shark itself, the weather, things like that. And that's why the story of Jaws works, because it follows the universal structure of all stories. Now, applying that structure to the story of your own life immediately gives you two very important questions. Question number one, what do you want? Question number two, what do you have to overcome in order to get it? Those are questions we should think of every now and again. What do I want out of life? And what do I have to overcome in order to get what I want? And in this morning's lesson, with those questions at the back of our mind, we're going to learn that a courageous life requires a concentrated mind. When the sheriff in Jaws decided that what he wanted was to kill the shark, he then became pretty focused on that goal. And no amount of pressure and no amount of difficulty was going to distract him from what he wanted. Once you've decided what you want and you've figured out how you're going to get it, you then have to concentrate and not let yourself get distracted. Many people never ever get to live their best life because they settle and get distracted by a lesser life. Many people never get to live out their best story because they get distracted by a lesser story. Many people never get to make the most of their best opportunity because a lesser opportunity robbed them of their focus and their attention along the way. To see this principle in action, we're going to look at a great episode from the Gospel according to St. Matthew. For those of you joining us online, welcome to you. We're in chapter 14 and verse 22, which says that immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. Now, the context of this episode is that Jesus has just fed 5,000 people. At least that's what they told you when you went to Sunday school. The truth is that Jesus has not just fed 5,000 people. That didn't happen. That's a slight misrepresentation. The truth is that Jesus has just fed 5,000 men, 5,000 angry, violent, politically motivated men, zealots they were called, people who believed that the only way to bring about the utopian society that they longed for was at the end of a sword. The political motto of these people in the first century was, "We've said our prayers and sharpened our swords." And for reasons that I won't get into this morning, these violent, dangerous, politically motivated men really liked Jesus. Jesus, from a certain point of view, was a misunderstood hippie who attracted to himself in the early days a large number of violent reactionaries. These are people who thought that Jesus was going to be a Che Guevara figure who would lead them with swords and semtex to the political goals that they thought were important. Now, with that in your mind, notice then that there is an unmistakable urgency to this sentence in the Bible. Matthew is asking us to understand that the second these 5,000 angry, dangerous men have eaten their miraculous meal, Jesus grabs his followers, notice the use of the word immediately, grabs them by the scruff of the neck and says, "Dude, we gotta go. Like, this is getting uncomfortable. If we stay here a second longer, this is going to get awkward. We need to leave now, get out of here." And notice also that the urgency with which Jesus wants the disciples to leave is met with a certain reluctance on their part. That's why the text says that he made them leave. Jesus has to force them to let go of this particular moment that they evidently did not wish to let go of. This raises an intriguing question. Why does Jesus have to force them? What is it about this moment, this opportunity, that the 12 followers of him, of Jesus, don't want to let go of? I think they're doing the math. They're thinking to themselves, this is a big crowd. Jesus is going to be the leader of this big crowd. This big crowd and Jesus are going to go places together. It's going to be a big movement. And we're going to be at the heart of this big movement, which means we're going to get big wages in a big corner office doing big things. This thing, this opportunity that's in front of us right here, right now, that's presented itself to us out of the blue, this thing is going to take us exactly where we want to go. This is right. This is good. And so, stepping out of the text for a moment or two and into our lives, we should remind ourselves that not every opportunity that presents itself to us should be seized upon with both hands. Because not every opportunity will take you where it is you want to go. Think of life and opportunities like a highway. You don't take every exit just because it's an exit. The reason you're fussy about the exits that you take is because you're looking for the exit that will take you to your intended destination. Similarly, just because it's a good opportunity doesn't mean it's a good opportunity for you. And knowing the difference between a good opportunity and a good opportunity for you can make all the difference. I mean, the math in this sentence, it adds up. It makes sense. The disciples are following Jesus because they like what he has to say about the kingdom of God. The 5,000 angry zealots are passionately interested in this kingdom of God. The disciples like Jesus. The 5,000 angry zealots like Jesus. The disciples want the world to be a better place. The 5,000 angry zealots want the world to be a better place as well. I mean, this opportunity right here, right now, it seems to make sense. This seems to be an exit that they ought to be taking. Jesus, maybe we should just team up with these guys. Because these guys with their swords and their semtex, they're going to take us where we want to go. This is right. I think that the exits that get you most lost in life aren't the ones 100 miles away from the one you're looking for. Most of the time we're not dumb enough to take those exits. We're not stupid enough to make those mistakes. The ones that get you really lost are the ones that are close to the one you're looking for. In my life, I never worry about the 180-degree problems. The ones that will take me in a totally different direction. They're easy to spot, easy to handle. I can bat those things away all day long without thinking about them. No problem. I worry about the 5-degree problems. The little things. The little opportunities that take you just slightly off course. They worry me because just a 5-degree difference today, in a decade's time, takes me in a completely different direction. Making big decisions in life is important and well and good. It's good to get those right. But have a think about the little things that you're doing every day. The things that are so little you just don't notice the extent to which they are taking you closer to or further from wherever it is you want to go. Next sentence. We read that after Jesus dismissed them, which is Bible talk for dudes. You just need to get out of here because you and me, my people, your people, we don't know. This isn't going to happen. Sorry. After he had dismissed them, Jesus went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Now, as soon as you hear the word pray mentioned in church, you instantly begin to feel a little bit of guilt and a little bit of pressure, because you know enough to know that it might be a good idea to say your prayers, and you know yourself well enough to know that you're not very good at saying them and feel bad that you don't say them often enough. And the church, in my view, is often quite hypocritical about this subject. If you hang around Christians for long enough, you'll notice that they often use the language of prayer as an excuse for laziness. For example, if you ask a person of this disposition what their opinion is on a certain given subject, they will often say, oh, well, I think I should just pray about that, and I'm praying about what I should do. And I just want to respond in that situation and say, no, you're not. You're not praying. What you're in fact doing is being lazy. And you're using prayer as an excuse not to think, not to use the brain God gave you, not to make the most of the amazing life God has gifted you with. Prayer is just a word you use to check out of that responsibility, and it doesn't cut it, and it doesn't impress God. If you hang around Christians for long enough, you'll notice that the word prayer is a way of using words to demonstrate that they're better than you are, that they're higher up the spiritual totem pole than you could ever hope to be, and you can't quite put your finger on it, and you're too polite to even try, but it just doesn't feel right with you. There's an alarm bell goes off in your gut, and it seems fake and it seems disingenuous. If you hang around Christians long enough, you'll notice that prayer is often used as a subtle means of manipulating someone. I've lost count of the number of times people have said to me, I've been praying about this and what I think is. And then the next sentence that comes out of their mouth is just an expression of their wishes and their desires, and they're just using God or Jesus or the language of spirituality to bend me to their will. In Bible times they called that blasphemy. Let me give you a piece of advice about that. It's not very spiritual, but it's important. You probably never hear this advice in any other church. But listen, remember it. Be very wary of those to whom God speaks. Isn't that a word for the world today? Be very wary of those to whom God speaks. And I mention that to you because I actually think that the church, as it does in so many subjects, often makes too much of a big deal out of praying. And the reason I say that is because I've read the Gospels. And in the Gospels, Jesus doesn't pray all that often. He just doesn't. And on the few occasions when he does pray, it's because the purpose of his life is under threat. Jesus is the hero of the gospel story, and what the hero wants in the story is to go to the cross and die for the sins of his people. That's the gospel story. And Jesus prays when he's either tempted to or pressured to move away from that goal and do it a different way, when he's distracted by different opportunities and different exits that he might take. And here you have one of them. Here you have 5,000 angry men saying, Jesus, we know how this needs to be done. We know how you need to get to this place you're looking to get to, and it involves swords and semtex and killing people and violence and hate. We know exactly how to take you where you want to go in life. And it's so close to what Jesus wants. There's just enough truth in what they're offering that Jesus feels the distraction. He feels the sense of the opportunity, so much so that the text says he needs to go away on his own and pray, to refocus, to concentrate, to get his head back on the goal, and what it is he wants. If you don't concentrate, you won't go anywhere. I suppose much of what I've said this morning presupposes that you have some kind of goal, that you have some kind of idea of what it is you actually want in life. And if you don't know what that is, that's something that you should think about. Just draw a target on the wall, any target. Aim for something, shoot for something. Don't get distracted from it. Concentrate. Prayer, I think, is a thing that we do at various points in our life to varying degrees. But in each of our lives there are moments, sometimes key moments, where a decision has to be made, and that decision alters the course of our life, sometimes for 6 months, a year, sometimes to the very end of our lives. Sometimes that decision is just a natural part of life's journey. Sometimes that decision is forced upon you. Sometimes it's a new business venture, a new relationship, a new opportunity, a course to do at school. Perhaps it's an opportunity that you weren't expecting, as is the case in this story for Jesus. And in those key moments, in those pressured decision events, it makes sense as a Christian to get on your knees and just think about the whole thing. Decide what's right. Think to yourself, just because this is a good opportunity, is it the good opportunity for me? Is this going to take me where I need to go? And this matters because decisions change us. What did Shakespeare say? There's a tide in the affairs of men that if taken at flood leads to great fortune, but if missed, all the days of our lives are lived in the shallows. You have moments like that in your life. An opportunity comes your way, for good or for ill. You have to make a decision. And the consequences of that decision affect your life, for better or for worse, maybe forever. And that's the moment. That's the exact moment Jesus is having in verse 46. He's saying no to this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. 99 people out of 100 would grab this opportunity with both hands, no question. It meets most of my needs right here, right now. It makes so much sense. But not for me. I got to say no. I got to pass. This isn't taking me where I want to go. I got to go another way. Later that night, the story goes on, he was there alone. The boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. I like that sentence. I don't have anything to say about that sentence by way of explaining it to you, except to say I think it's just a perfect poetic description of how life sometimes feels. You know where you want to go. You're trying as hard as you can to get there. I mean, you're trying. You are trying. You're getting up every day, you're doing your thing, you're making the effort, you're putting in the hours, and you're trying. But it feels like the wind is against you. Ever feel like that? And you're just straining just to stay still. And you're pulling and you're pulling and you're pushing and you're pushing and you're just staying still. And it's hard. As I say, I got nothing to say, I just thought that'd be fun to tell you. I thought it'd be fun to describe the water in which you're drowning. Isn't that just life sometimes? Isn't that exactly how it feels? I'm rowing 4 knots west, and the wind's pushing me 4 knots east. Life. Anyway, cheery thought aside, shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. Boom, there you go, I said it. When the story says at this point that Jesus walked on top of the lake, what the story means is that Jesus walked on top of the lake. That's kind of what it means. Now, I say that to you and tease out a little bit of absurdity, because this is not an excuse for us to waste time complaining that such things are in fact impossible. Of course they are in fact impossible. And in the face of such impossibility, what a lot of writers do at this point is they talk about, well, what Jesus actually... I imagine they have big jowls when they say this. That's not in the script. What Jesus actually meant at this point was he was walking on a submerged sandbank that zealot spies told him about the day before, or there was a secret stone path that very few people knew, blah, blah, blah. And I understand why they say that. Walking on top of water is in fact impossible, therefore Jesus can't have walked on top of the water. I think that in 2015, in the postmodern world, we have very little patience for such rational things. I think we're all perfectly happy to read this story as a story and draw meaning from it as a story. That's the point. Rationality isn't the point. The point is this. In first century Jewish religious thought, there is only one being in the universe who can do what Jesus is doing here. Have a look at this next sentence. This comes from a part of the Bible called the book of Job. It's part of the Hebrew Bible. The disciples would have known this off by heart. And it says, speaking of God, the God of the Hebrew Bible, the God of Genesis, He alone walks on the waves of the sea. He alone walks on the waves of the sea. That's about God, and the reason I know the disciples would have known that verse off by heart is because, number one, they were Jews, and Jews in the first century had most of the Hebrew Bible memorized off by heart. And number two, these are Jewish fishermen. And fishermen all over the world are the same, even today. They have all the sea, water, wave, wind verses in the Bible memorized off by heart. They just do. If there's a verse in the Bible about the sea, fishermen know it. That's the kind of people they are. They know this stuff. And so in this verse, what's happening is Jesus is walking on water, and he's kind of waving at the disciples saying, hello, here's a dot and here's another dot. You have to join them. Dot 1, I'm walking on water. Dot 2, who am I? Who am I? Come on, who am I? Which explains the reaction of the disciples. Verse 26 tells us that they were terrified. This must be a ghost, they said, and they cried out in fear. That word again. Next sentence, Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. Love those two words. Take courage. Just take it. No one's going to give it to you. No one's going to do it for you. I know it's hard. I know you're scared. But you, right now, reach out and take courage. Grab what you need to make it through the next moment, the next day. Do it for yourself. Take it. Don't be afraid. He said, it is I. Now, Jesus is using very deliberate vocabulary here. One of the formative books, the formative book of Jewish religious life is, of course, the Torah. And the most important part of the Torah probably is the book of Exodus. And perhaps the most important chapter for first century Jews in the book of Exodus is chapter 3. Look at this sentence from Exodus chapter 3. This is the bit where God introduces himself to Moses. So God says to Moses, I am who I am. You want to know my name? That's my name. I am. What are you going to do? I am. And over the years, this phrase, I am who I am, became a Jewish way of talking about God. So a first century Jew, when he heard the phrase, I am, he would have immediately associated that phrase with the God of the Hebrew Bible. Now, listen to that Old Testament sentence in the words of the Greek Septuagint. God the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. God said to, can you go back to the other slides, is that possible? So God said to Moses, and then in Greek, ego eimi, ego eimi, ego eimi. You go forward to the next slide. In Greek this reads, Jesus says, take courage, don't be afraid, ego eimi, ego eimi. Remember the phrase? Remember where you read it before? Remember how you heard this in Sunday school? Jesus couldn't be making it clearer to his disciples. He's saying in emphatic terms, I am. In the ups and the downs, when the wind is pushing you further back, when you can't make headway, when you're scared, when you're afraid, I am. I am. Don't be scared. One of the disciples, however, wasn't scared at all. He was too stupid to be scared. He was pumped. And so we read that Peter said, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. In other words, Jesus, if you're walking on water, I want to do it too. Looks awesome. So here in this sentence you have a mini story. The hero of the story, Peter, he knows what he wants. He wants to walk on water. And he knows what he has to overcome in order to walk on water. He has to overcome the laws of physics. Should be easy enough. So this is set up to be a great story. I want to walk on water. I have to overcome the laws of physics in order to get what I want. Then we read next sentence. Peter got down out of the boat, walked on water and came towards Jesus. Boom! He's doing it. He wanted to walk on water. He wanted to overcome the laws of physics. He's doing it like it's no big deal. Not even an issue. No problem. Next sentence. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. So what's happening here is Peter is doing the thing he always wanted to do. Just like you're doing the thing you always wanted to do. Some of you in this room, you are doing the thing today that you set out to do years ago. You're living the life you set out to live years ago. You're enjoying the relationship you set out to enjoy years ago. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're on track. But in this sentence, Peter's fears and anxieties begin to get in the way. And so he begins to talk himself out of doing the thing that he always wanted to do. And you'll notice that his fears and anxieties come from his surroundings. If I were to ask you the question, what's stopping you? If I were to ask you the question, what's holding you back? What's keeping you from getting that thing you want? Many of you would immediately begin to talk about your surroundings, your environment, the things you have to deal with. But the truth is, the hard truth, is that it's not the things that are holding you back. The reason I know that is because other people are dealing with those exact same things every single day of their lives. And they're winning. You're not. They're making progress. You're stuck. They're moving ahead. You've stopped. That same thing that you think's holding you back, it hasn't held them back. It hasn't stopped them. Maybe then it's not the thing that's holding you back. Maybe it's how you think about the thing. In this episode, Peter's doing it. He's winning. He is winning. But then he begins to concentrate on the wrong things. He loses focus. He starts to see what's wrong, what's scary, what's dangerous, what might not work. And then his story begins to unravel. And he can't get past it. He creates a wall for himself. He can't. And we do this all the time. I do this. I have an amazing life. I really do. But every now and again, maybe every day, you have these thoughts about, oh, life might stop working. Bad things might happen. Things might go wrong. It's stupid. It's stupid. Then we read that immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Jesus, remember, is there in the bad times as well as the good. He's there in the failure, in the fear, in the moments when it's hard for you to keep doing what you always wanted to do. Jesus is there for that. But just because he's there for the hard times doesn't mean he's there with a Kleenex. That's what your mother's for. Jesus is there for the kick up the ass. That's the Jesus love. So notice the kick up the ass in this verse. You have little faith. Why did you doubt? Why did you stop believing that what you were doing you couldn't do anymore? You believed in Santa. Why did you not believe in yourself? Like, dude, why? There is nothing that will kill your progress in life quite so efficiently as a lack of faith. If all you see are the things that are holding you back, then I'm sorry, you won't move on. You'll stay stuck. And it's such a waste of life, isn't it? When I wrote this last paragraph, I was in a coffee shop, and I was thinking about the other people who were in the coffee shop with me at the time. I didn't know any of them, but I was wondering about their story. Most of them were either at or slightly past the middle. So they were at that part of the story where it starts to speed up a bit and go downhill towards the end. You know that bit? And I wondered about the things that might be holding them back. I wondered about the things in their own head, the obstacles that they'd been creating for themselves for so long. The things that stop them living. The things that stop them being happy. The things that stop them doing it. And those thoughts inspired me, dark as they were. It's good to know, I think, that we don't have a never-ending story. It's good to know, I think, that there will be an end just as sure as there was a beginning and a middle. And knowing that is such an important thought. It reminds you, you may as well grab life by the balls and do whatever it is you want to do. And live the life you want to live. You may as well set for yourself a goal and some target, something, and go for it. You may as well dream of the life you want and take steps towards living it. You may as well let go of doubt and fear and faith. What have you got to lose? Who are you helping by not believing in yourself? Like, are you expecting someone to come along with a Kleenex? Life doesn't work like that. Believe in yourself. You really don't have anything to lose except fear. That's all. So walk on water, why not? Go for it. We're out of time. We've got to make way for what are we making way for today? Some film. Hunger Games 12 or something. Which is a never-ending story. If Jennifer Lawrence is watching this, my number is 905. We got to go. Thank you for coming. God bless you. See you next time.
Wow, that was a good one.